It's day 2 of this year's week-long Eastern Oregon adventure with Jason of Primal Outdoors. This morning, we worked our way up a rough little trail back out of the Owyhee Canyon where we camped last night. A lot of miles of empty backcountry lie between us and Rome Station, one of our few opportunities to refuel on this trip.
So we are now working our way up the west side of the canyon. Neither of us have been on this road or out this way before. I don't know exactly what kind of views of the canyon we may encounter along the way. Our next real destination is Rome because there's gas there.
While it's largely dry out here in the Eastern Oregon high desert, we're encountering frequent pockets of water which turn the fine, silty dirt into slick, greasy mud.
Jason's having a little trouble getting through this particular mud pit.
Just mostly driving through a lot of open desert, mostly sagebrush. The road is just a dirt road, and so any place where any water has managed to stay, there are pretty significant mud holes. I wouldn't want to be out here on a rainy day or in a wet season or any time where there had been quite a bit of rain before. It's astonishing how much water has stayed out here while the rest of it is quite dry. The parts of the road that are not wet are just sort of this crumbly dry mud, which is makes for a rough ride, and there are rocks sticking out of the roadbed, and so you do have to pay attention. So we're here's the canyon. There's where we camped last night down in there, and Rome is all the way up here. Don't know if you can see that. Oh, I better pay attention to the road here. Well, hopefully we don't get too much worse than that. I found with these mud holes that I definitely have to have the traction control switched off. When the traction control is on and those wheels start spinning, it starts applying brakes to the wheels that are spinning because it thinks the vehicle is out of control and it's attempting to stabilize things. Going through mud like that, you really want to keep the wheels churning and spinning so that you maintain forward motion and momentum through the mud. When you start slowing down or coming to a stop, that's when you're really gonna have a hard time getting going again. Most of the time, I leave traction control on. It's definitely beneficial in a lot of situations, even going down gravel roads. I think it's beneficial to have it on. But there are a handful of scenarios where you absolutely want to keep those wheels spinning and don't want to have any brakes getting applied at all. This segment coming up along the sort of west side of the canyon is really just kind of rolling off a lot of miles of driving through open rangeland, open desert. No real significant features. It's definitely lovely in its way. I mean, there's something very pleasant about just the vast openness. That's part of overland travel, right? It can't be all glorious and spectacular every minute of the trip. Well, from Fields to Rome Station on 3/4 of a tank, that's impressive.
Yeah, she's been on E for about 26 miles.
Jason will eventually post a final version of this route on his website, which will bring you to this historic bridge across the Owyhee River so the trek can continue up the east side of the canyon.
As you head out of Rome, after you cross the bridge, it kind of looks like you're driving right through somebody's property, but it is the road. Thanks to my friends at Grizzlies, they not only set me up with granola for this trip, but also with some snacks. I'm eating their rosemary chipotle cashews. Really, really tasty, addictively good. So we are heading out a little side road off of the planned route. A little something that we spotted that looks like it heads out towards the canyon. We're gonna go check it out and see if maybe it might be a good place to camp.
I know it's really hard to get a sense of scale of these cliffs and these rocks. You can see Jason there, and this drop-off is just immense. There's a couple of rapids in the river, which is nice because we can actually hear the river from up here. There's a distinct sound of flowing water, which would be nice to fall asleep to.
I mean, honestly, my preference would be that it not be raining when I go camping. But if it is gonna rain, there's something really pleasant about having an awning out, still being able to sit and enjoy the outdoors, and just listen to the sound of the rain. That works for me too. If you watched my series going through the southwest of the US, I showed a lot of interesting rocks, rock formations, just landscapes in general with a lot of really vivid colors, reds and oranges and pinks, and it was really stunning, really beautiful, really interesting to see. But I shouldn't take for granted how really astonishingly beautiful this is. Now, I grew up with this sort of gray-black basalt rock, but the contrast that it makes with the grasses and the foliage out there, and just the starkness and ruggedness of the basalt, it's got a beauty all its own. Well, we definitely got into some mud holes over the past couple of days, but the roads were largely dry aside from the mud holes. Now that it's been raining all afternoon, I don't know quite what we're going to find tomorrow. I deal with a lot of rain in Western Oregon, and it really doesn't bother me that much. I do look forward to getting into Central Oregon and Eastern Oregon. It's usually dry and sunny and blue sky here. That didn't go quite according to plan, but it's all right. I'm gonna make sort of a pork teriyaki kind of thing, and I'm gonna try not to be envious of Jason, who's over there cooking in front of the campfire. Now, you can make a pork loin like in the oven, like a roast, but when I do it on the stove, I like to cut it up into chunks. It's a really nice, very tender piece of meat. I mean, I guess that's why they call it tenderloin. And this is way more meat than I can eat in one night, but I'm hoping to save the leftovers and use them for another dinner later in the week. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sear that pork off and at least get it partially cooked, and then I'm going to take it off and work on the rest of the ingredients. Then it will go back in and sort of simmer and stew in whatever sauce results, hopefully. I'm going to use this teriyaki sauce sort of as the base of what I'm doing here. And I really love this Kona Coast Paradise Pineapple Teriyaki. I'm actually going to add some white wine to add sort of that reduction flavor, but also just to bring a little more liquid. The key thing though is to make sure you cook off the alcohol, because it will not taste right if the alcohol is not cooked off. I'm going to let that simmer a little bit so those flavors sort of marry together and the pork can finish cooking. I'm going to go ahead and add some pineapple in there. Ooh. Smells pretty good. Let's see what we did here. Oh, that turned out better than I expected, actually. Oh, that is tasty. I think I'm going to serve this up into my bowl here and see if Jason will let me sit by his fire over there.
Ridiculous amount of times to finally get at the fire, but it finally would. But on a green bottle, I just honestly wouldn't think
Thing is,
you'd have...
but yeah, I'll see tomorrow what happens. I can try.
Yeah, because we have numbers of that eat.
For a week, I guess. No, weekend.
Good morning. Well, the rain finally stopped at some point last night, but the fog has rolled in, and you can't even see the canyon. It is full of fog,
It's like the ground just comes to an end here and then nothing.
Well, that canyon is down there somewhere. You can hear the river.
So I'm getting camp all packed away and everything is just wet, it's damp, it's cold out here. But I tell you what, you've heard me complain about traveling in the heat. I'll take this any day over hot weather. It can rain, it can be foggy, it can snow, everything can be wet and cold, but I feel so much better. Funny, it's sort of reminiscent of the trip Jason and I took a year ago, working our way from Bend to the Alvord, where we got up into just really crazy thick clouds. Well, although we were hitting some mud holes yesterday,
It does look like there's potential that this is going to burn off and we might have a nicer day later. So hopefully these roads will dry up a little bit before tomorrow.
yeah, I thought I could just barely see a hint of blue up through the fog, so I'm hoping we'll end up with some clearing.
We haven't been able to see much this morning due to the weather, but a little historic point of interest has suddenly appeared out of the fog. You have to wonder how many decades ago this antique would have been used to drive out here in the middle of nowhere. Definitely no satellite communications in those days. Clearly, they had to just abandon the rig and start walking. The sun is trying to punch through the fog as we find ourselves in an area Jason checked out with the RMT Overland Gladiator back in January. It's not time for us to make camp yet, but we're going to take a quick break at this spot where Jason had camped on this trip.
It's really a cool little campsite.
It's not the epic view that we had.
Right, yeah.
But it was a nice spot because this is where I thought maybe I would get some shelter from the wind.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, a big fire pit.
Yeah.
Like that. So, but yeah, this is one of the spots I camped when I was here last with the Jeep Gladiator. It was really beautiful then because well, there's some trees, that's promising.
So this is an unplanned little side trip, just a little road we saw going down to a dead end at a spring. And so we're just checking it out. That's what we're out here to do.
Well, that's nice. And this is cool. Well, someone had a nice little spot to live here.
It's not unusual to see springs marked on maps, and most of the time out here in the desert, they are nothing more than a large muddy puddle thoroughly trampled by cattle. We definitely were not expecting such an exquisite body of water. This pretty little oasis is teeming with life, and we've decided to make camp here so we can take our time to fully explore the surroundings on foot and enjoy the wildlife. In the next episode, we'll see what we can discover around this oasis before moving on to the next leg of our journey. Be sure to check out Jason's channel as well for his perspective on our trip. Thanks for watching.